6 years old in Chicago who stabbed 62 times by his landlord. Well, did that happen to him?
Hold on. But that's like saying, that's what somebody says, Black Lives Matter. That's like somebody saying Black Lives Matter and they go, well, white lives matter or this other lives matter.
Since October 7th, Bassem Youssef has emerged as one of the most prominent pro-Palestinian voices in Western media, a visibility that grew significantly following his widely shared exchanges with Piers Morgan.
My wife's family, they live in Gaza, so I asked them. I told them, when Israel give you the nice warning, the cute warning, does Hamas force you to stay in your home so you can be bombed and use as human shield? You know what? Hassan here, my wife's cousin. He's a loser. You know. He told me. You know, when I asked him, does that happen? He told me, no. The lying son of a bitch lied to me. I told him, you don't understand. Ben Shapiro and Ron DeSantis keep saying that Israel warned you and Hamas asked you to stay put. So I told you, he's a loser. He never kept a job. He even failed in all of the interviews to become like a human shield. I would believe.
This guy, bro, I'm sorry. The sarcasm is crazy. The sarcasm is crazy with this guy.
For many viewers, those interviews transformed him from simply being known as Egypt's Jon Stewart into one of the central public figures pushing back on how Israel, Gaza, and Palestine are framed and discussed across mainstream media platforms. That context is exactly why his exchange with Akbar got charged so quickly. Akbar raised the issue of anti-Semitism, and that is not a minor concern to introduce into any conversation.
Start to label people whenever they voice their opinion. You're racist, you're misogynist. This is like you're basically limiting the conversation. You're just like putting already limits. You're already gauging the conversation in order. So now the discussion doesn't evolve around how bad Israel is. It's like, oh, how bad are you as an anti-Semite? You know who's really controlling things by how untouchable they are. And people can see that. You know, Norman Finkelstein was like a great Jewish scholar. Mm-hmm. He said this, like, I refuse this narrative that there's rising anti-Semitism. It's not happening. Like, let me ask you a question. Have you heard about a Jewish person losing their job, losing their chance in education, losing their opportunities because they are pro-Israel? No, it didn't happen.
Well, but I have to say, just a couple of weeks ago, several weeks ago now, there are two Jewish guys who were in London and they were stabbed.
It's interesting that you say that because actually if you read it, there was two Jewish guy and a Muslim guy. The three of them are stabbed, but you talk about the two Jewish guy, but not about the third Muslim that they were also stabbed. Okay. It's crazy, right? You see the filtering that just happened?
Mm.
Jewish communities across Britain, America, and the broader Western world have faced genuine fear, threats, and violence, and that reality has intensified since the war in Gaza began. In London specifically, recent attacks targeting Jewish people have deepened that anxiety, particularly with Tony Robinson's Unite the Kingdom rally scheduled for this coming Saturday. Many observers point out that attacks on Jewish communities end up providing ammunition for the far right, which has learned to position itself as a defender of Jewish people while simultaneously pushing anti-Muslim politics. It is a cynical strategy, but an effective one. So Akbar's concern is legitimate, but Bassem's counter-argument is that the concern gets applied selectively. He is not dismissing anti-Semitism or suggesting it does not exist. His position is more pointed than that. He argues that accusations of anti-Semitism are frequently deployed as a tool to shut down any criticism directed at the Israeli government, while violence against Muslims and Palestinians tends to receive considerably less media attention, less public sympathy, and far less political urgency in response. The playing field, in his view, is nowhere near level.
You want to talk about violence, right? There was a friend of mine, his name is Jamal Awartani. He was with two of his colleagues in Brown universities, and they were wearing a keffiyeh, speaking Arabic, and they were shot.
Wow.
Did that happen to the Jew? There was a 6 years old in Chicago who stabbed 62 times by his landlord. Did that happen to him?
Hold on. But that's like that's what somebody says. Black lives. That's like somebody saying Black Lives Matter, and they go, well, white lives matter or this other lives matter. I'm just saying. I'm asking, like, that's happening, because to dismiss it means like...
I'm not dismissing it.
Okay, so...
I'm not dismissing it. What I'm saying...
Is there any correlation to the rise of anti-Semitism?
What I'm saying is... Okay, I'll ask you the question.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, there's a lot of hate crimes happening to Muslims and Arabs and people losing their jobs because they're pro-Palestinian thing. Nothing happening on the other side the same way, the same magnitude, and yet this is what we all talk about. Yes, I'm happy to talk about anti-Semitism. But if you see the percentage of the attacks and people losing their jobs and being doxxed and being like losing opportunities in the marketplace because they have went onto a pro-Palestinian protest, it is not even be compared by the level of injustice happening on the other side. And yet, this other side is what we always talk about. And second of it is when you have a country like Israel always hiding behind Judaism, and in the name of Jewish people doing all of these atrocities, considering that that is true Judaism, while Jewish people are screaming, saying like, it's not in my name. Jewish people for peace, there's a lot of Jewish comedians and our artists, they're actually against that, but the Israel is keep dismissing them, calling them self-hating Jew, and then they're projecting this is the only side of Jewish people that you should see. Eventually, you'll have a rise of anti-Semitism.
Anti-Semitism is real. Jewish people should never be attacked or blamed for the actions of a government. Anti-Muslim hatred is equally real. Palestinians and Muslims should not be dehumanized, dismissed, or treated as acceptable casualties in public debate. Bassem then shifts toward U.S. foreign policy, arguing that American lawmakers appear more responsive to Israeli interests than to the constituents who elected them, and that this dynamic shapes everything from military aid to diplomatic cover. He contends that a significant part of the global resentment toward America is not rooted in some abstract opposition to Western values or freedom, but in the very concrete reality of the United States enabling policies that much of the world views as deeply unjust. In his view, that alignment carries real consequences for America's international standing and reputation. Bassem also brings up the early history of Zionism, noting that several locations were seriously considered before Palestine became the central focus, including Uganda, Madagascar, and Argentina. His point is that political Zionism, at its origins, was not purely a biblical mandate. It had practical, colonial, financial, and ideological dimensions running alongside the religious framing. He uses the example of Bill Maher, a self-described atheist who simultaneously supports the idea that Jews belong in Palestine on biblical grounds, to highlight what he sees as a fundamental contradiction at the heart of certain secular Zionist positions. Ultimately, the debate worked because Akbar and Bassem were each speaking from a place of genuine fear. Akbar was concerned that anti-Semitism was being minimized or overlooked. Bassem was concerned that Palestinian and Muslim suffering was being buried beneath it. The hardest part of this entire conversation is that both of those fears are real.